There are a lot of stories about UFOs, alien spacecraft, and aliens themselves. But most of the story we've heard is from regular people, and you really can't prove it if they were telling the truth or they were just lying. But the first time an army saw UFOs, you might not believe it. It was in 1976, and it was in Tehran, capital of Iran. But you have to know that throughout the world, Iran could be considered the most visited country by UFOs. UFO sightings that you can actually prove. Just like we said, a UFO showed up in 1976 in the city of Tehran. It was in September, and it was around 1 in the morning. The story about this UFO sighting is not a faraway place and a few people saw it. It's a place where millions of people live, and thousands of people in Tehran saw the same thing. Most of the people that saw it lived in the west side of Tehran next to the airport. Behind the UFO, they saw a few F-4 Phantom that are launching from the airport next door, and they're about to chase the UFOs down. Just like we said, the pilots flew towards the UFO, but they said whenever we got close, our instruments stopped working. Even our gauges stopped working. But when we got far away from it, everything came back online. One of the pilots on that day was Parvez Jafari. Jafari says when he got close to it, you could literally see it on the radar. It's not like we were delusional. We weren't hallucinating. They said the UFO had a lot of strobing lights and they were shining different ones at them, so we couldn't take a good look at it. The UFO goes towards south and the Phantoms chase. But the UFO all of a sudden stops midair and the Phantoms pass by. It was 1976 and there was no aeroplane that could float midair, just like a helicopter. They turned around and they couldn't believe that that thing is just staying still midair, because they have never seen something that fast just hovering in the air. Jafari says, when me and the other pilots were circling this UFO, something very bright came out of it and came towards me. They don't know if it was a mini UFO or missiles. They really don't know what it was. A bright light separates from the UFO and it comes towards him. It's at that moment that the pilots think they've been attacked and they're flying away. But the Phantoms had missile attached to them and they could have shot it, but the airplane itself would not allow it to happen because it was malfunctioning. They fly away from it, but their curiosity won't let them fly far, and they're watching it from afar. And all 8 Phantom fighter jet pilots say that the UFO all of a sudden shot into the sky and left space. It was 1976 and the Soviet Union was still there. The US Joint Chief of Staff approves all of this, and they believe something like this actually happened. They didn't say how they saw the UFO, but they said the UFOs flew over Tehran. It was a Cold War between the USSR and the US, and Iran was neighbors with the Soviet Union, and the US was always around the borders of the USSR. In the end, the UFO flew away. But it seems like the UFOs really like Iran. You might not believe it, but 28 years later, in the year 2004, another UFO showed up on Iran's land, and it went to the Arak nuclear power plant. In this year, the F-14s went towards the UFO. Iran's army was ready. They thought they're about to attack the power plant. In a short period of time, 8 F-14s and 8 F-4 Phantoms went towards this UFO. All 16 of the pilots say that this was a flying saucer, had a lot of strobing light, and the movement it had was unbelievable, just like the movies. All 16 pilots also says that when we had it surrounded, it launched into space and we couldn't see it anymore. But it seems like it didn't go far because it came back into Earth. Because it was around the same year where the USS Nimitz, one of the aircraft carriers for the US Navy, saw the same looking thing on the Pacific Ocean. The people in the Navy say that when this thing was flying up and down, it was unbelievably fast. And there was no heat coming out of any side of it. Basically like an engine that has an exhaust. So it basically had a different source of power. The news about the UFOs in Iran, everybody noticed it. But the news about the same UFO that USS Nimitz saw came out of the Pentagon in the year 2020. It seems like the UFO wanted something from Iran because it came back. This time in the year 2012. They're first seeing in the radar and F-14s go out and chase it. Nobody knows why, but one of Iran's F-14s with no collision explodes midair. The other pilots say the way that this aircraft exploded, it seems like some type of invisible power was sent to it to explode it. This time, they could measure the speed of the UFO, and it was Mach 10, 10 times the speed of sound, or 12,348 kilometers an hour. There's no aircraft right now in the world that has a speed like this, and the cool part is that it would reach this speed all of a sudden, not like it would slowly get to that speed. These 4 alien sightings is the most useful ones because a lot of different people saw it, different countries saw it, and the stories kind of match each other. 3 times on Iran, 1 time on the Pacific Ocean. When we made the video about the biggest blizzard in history, a lot of people commented that this is lies. We have to tell you guys, but with a simple search on the internet, you could see if it's a lie or the truth. This is the same thing. If you don't believe it, please search it or click the links on our description about the sources. What do you guys think? Why do they keep visiting Iran? Are they aliens? Spy? We really don't know. Please let us know.